because they gave birth to me does not mean that they can abuse me. So funny how people will not allow their friends to abuse them. And I'm cutting you off, but the mom has done more damage. That's why you keep attracting people, or the dad has done more damage. So you can set boundaries, and people, the word is bouncing around everywhere, thanks to TikTok. But you don't have to walk around and say, my mom is a narcissist, but you allow the narcissist still in your life. So if you want to stop being the victim, you set the boundary and say, I'm no longer going to allow this person to call me. You can easily get off the phone. If you're saying, they're calling you to dump, those energy vampires are calling you to dump, then you just say, oh, I'm about to burn cookies. Let me call you right back. You just use my line. That's the line I use.
And we are here today with Dr. Ebony Baker-Moore, who is a licensed professional therapist, and she is here to gather us, okay? We are going to be gathered and instructed, and we are going to have some tools to help us move through a topic that we've actually never spoken about before, and we are on episode 100 and something.
I think 150. 55, 100, something like that, yeah.
So today we're actually here to talk a little about dysfunctional families. And this is something that I'm sure most of us can relate to. Most of us have had, either we know somebody who's in one or we think we're in one. So we're here to provide some clarity. But before we do that, we have to initiate you into the
initiation.
Okay, a little initiation. So we do an initiation question, which is just the only question we ask all of our guests. Every other question is unique to the topic, obviously. But the question that we have for all of our guests is, outside of all the titles, the accolades, the accomplishments, who do you say that you are?
I would say that I'm a healer. A healer. Yeah. My favorite topic, my favorite is just being mom.
Yeah.
The healing part is definitely, I would say, who I am.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, because y'all don't know what y'all about to find out. And so you are the mother of 7 daughters.
Yes.
Now, with most people, and it's so crazy that when many people hear daughters, they immediately think, oh my God, the worst thing ever.
That's magical to me.
Yes.
I love girls. Yeah, they're amazing.
But for so many years, at least maybe not for you guys, but for me, it was like having daughters was like a sign of like, you were cursed if you only had daughters.
Really?
Which is, yes,
Oh,
even
wow,
historically. Like, if you had sons, you were considered to be blessed by, like, the gods and things like that. But if you had a bunch of daughters, then it was like you were cursed because you didn't have anyone to carry on your last name or inherit your properties and things like that. Because even biblically, like, before, the daughters went to Moses, women could not own property. They couldn't have their own thing. They had to have husbands. And so having a bunch of daughters is like, ugh. But for you, having daughters and the way in which you've raised them, the way in which, a few of them became your children, it truly is like, no, healing is your thing. Yeah. It is what, it definitely is. It's not only what's in you.
Yes. Yeah, that's just the way I move and the way I walk. Definitely is a great passion. And girls are so powerful.
Oh, that's what I love.
They're so powerful.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, girls are a part of the community that gives, and this is Tony Jones' quote, but as biological women, you are a part of a community that gives souls bodies.
Yeah.
Life does not continue if you decide it doesn't continue.
Definitely.
Like, that is such an incredible amount of power.
Yeah.
But it also, whatever you give us, we multiply.
Yeah.
Good, bad, and ugly.
Good, bad, if you give it to us, we're going to multiply.
Very true.
You give us some sperm, we literally turn it into a soul, and that soul, gets birthed earthside and becomes a human who interacts with everybody else. And one of the things too, because there are folks who, can be a little traumatized, right, by the families who have brought them earthside, right? And when we are describing families, especially nowadays, because everyone is a mini psychologist with the advent of TikTok, Instagram, and everything else.
Oh my gosh, everywhere, yes.
The word dysfunction is so many times like misused and abused. But what do you feel are like the actual true components of a dysfunctional family? Like, what's that? Because we need to level set for the
people. It's breaking down the dynamics of how you're feeling as an individual as a whole, like, right? So because if you're feeling dysfunctional internally, you're walking through the world unhappy, right? So when people ask you, how are you doing? And you say fine, but it really doesn't mean fine. That's when we're talking about breaking down into dysfunctional. And that dysfunctional then creates other dysfunctional people. So you can create dysfunctional children. You can create a dysfunctional marriage based on you feeling dysfunctional. And if you're feeling dysfunctional, then you attract other dysfunctional people. And that's one of the main things that people don't recognize or realize. So it really starts with the whole person internally. And that branches out. So that's kind of where dysfunction comes from. And then when you're talking about like dysfunctional in families, oftentimes people would say dysfunction is because it's a broken family. There's not a mother and a father in the home. But it's actually not that at all, because you can have two dysfunctional mother and father in the home. It makes it a dysfunctional home. Just because they're both parents in the home does not mean that there's no dysfunction.
Ooh, that's hard.
Yeah.
So then when we just drill it down to dysfunction, is it subjective? Is it objective? Is it something that's standard for all families? Like, hey, no, this is the definition. Like the definition of, I don't know, right is whatever the definition. No, it's the definition of right. I digress. But whatever the definition of lotion, right? There's usually no like multiple definitions. Lotion is something that moisturizes and nourishes the skin or whatever it's placed on. Right. So like by definition, is dysfunction something that is objective or is it something that is subjective? Because what I may feel is not dysfunction, another person may be like, oh no, honey, that is as dysfunctional as it gets.
Right. So it really comes down to like cultural beliefs as well. Like, so like you got cultural beliefs, you got personal beliefs, and then you also have generational curses that have been passed down to make you think that it is actually healthy, but it's not healthy. So I would think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
I would think it's a combination of both, because there is no basis of right or wrong when it comes to that, or right or reason. It's just each person's experience is going to be different.
Okay.
Each person's experience is going to be different. Some people say it made me stronger, and instead of saying it broke you down.
Very true.
It broke you down.
Yeah. So then what are some steps that you feel like people can take to begin resolving their own traumas when they do realize that it's like, okay, this was not good. Like this family dynamic was unhealthy. Like there was a lot of codependency. There was a lot of silent treatments. There were a lot of things that were happening in the house that I realize is affecting me. What are some steps you can take if you have grown up, if you know that you've grown up in a dysfunctional family or you've been in dysfunctional situations with family members and you're like, hey, like this isn't, you had a conversation with somebody else and it's like, your family does what to you?
Right.
They called you what? What did your auntie say at Thanksgiving? Like, what did she say about you being single and unmarried at 39? Like, and to think that is normal to be spoken to a certain way, or to feel like you have to go back and save all your family members because you're the only one who went to college. Like, what are steps that people can start taking to kind of move through that?
It's recognizing who you are. Number one. So making a list of things that you want to challenge. So a good example is a couple come in and they're saying, hey, I use the pan to cut the butt off the ham or the turkey. I cut the butt off the turkey. You have to do that when you're cooking. The husband's like, you don't have to do that. The wife is like, yes, you do. You do have to do that. I asked my mom. She's in the kitchen. He went to the wife's mom and says, hey, do you have to cut the butt off the ham before you put it in the pan? She said, yes, it's a necessity. And he was like, no, I don't think that's necessary. It's not, it's not part of the process. She said, yes, it is. Even my mom did it. And so she went in to go ask Grandma. And they said, Grandma, tell them how important this is. And they turned around and Grandma said, oh, my pan just wasn't big enough. My pan just wasn't big enough. That's the only reason why I cut it off. Yeah. And so that was a long lesson that was generationally passed down, that they were serious. They thought that, and that's what we've done with dysfunction. That's what we've done. So making a list, starting there, making a list of the things you want to challenge. Yeah. What do I want to challenge? What doesn't feel good? Yeah. And what I want to challenge? This statement of, you're overweight. This statement of you have to have children for women. That's told a lot. So starting there and writing those things down so you can start to challenge them, which is the problem we have. We've always been told not to challenge things that we've been taught. that our parents know is best for us, right?
Yeah.
And that our caregivers know best for us. And it's really just another way of controlling your true essence.
Yeah.
So if it feels uncomfortable, write it down and start making a list of the things and start challenging it.
Yeah, like I want to see, is this true for me?
Is it true for me?
Like, yeah, this may be true for you, or this may have been the circumstance of the situation or the whatever that I've had to sit within or work within or abide by, but is this something I want to continue?
Yeah.
I will say for sure, when I turned 18, I just started burning up and disrupting all the things because I said, I don't like how being raised in this particular environment made me feel.
Yeah.
I do not like it. It does not work for me, and it feels really shitty. So let me see what I can do to see if I agree with some of the things. Now, some of it I absolutely still agreed with, but much of it I was like, this ain't it. I went and got pierced. I went and started doing just all the things because I just wanted to see what is me, what is you, and where can I draw the line to see which part of this feels better.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel good in myself. Within myself, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
How can I fix this, resolve this? And so then you embark on this healing journey, and in your mind and in your heart, you feel like, no, everybody needs this.
Needs to feel this way.
Yeah. So you're like telling everybody, right?
Listen, you telling everybody, like, no, trust me, come with me. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm fine. And then there's this immense sense of disappointment and hurt and sometimes anger and frustration because it's like, why aren't you trying to come here with me too? Like, what's your problem? So how do you resolve that disappointment that comes when they don't want to come with you? They are resistant and uninterested. Like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, that's definitely hard. But when you come to terms with yourself and understand that the healing journey is all about me. And if other people want to come on the journey with me, then great. But I have to understand that the healing part of the journey is supposed to be an island healing because it's for you. It's kind of like Michael Jackson's song, "Staring at the Man in the Mirror," right?
Yeah.
It's you have to do that. And when you understand that everybody else has their own journey and that they have to take their own journey in their own time, if you force their journey, they can oftentimes resent you because now you're becoming a parent. Now you're becoming their parent. Because even with our children, we tend to, this is like my analogy of children are not born and given to happy, loving, comforting parents all the time. Sometimes they're just placed in a box. And on the outside of the box, the parents will write, I want them to be a cheerleader. If it's a girl, it's going to be a cheerleader. They're going to have straight A's. They're going to be a Christian. They're going to be a football player. If they're a boy, they already have all these symbols. You give a label of a name, and then you put all these things on the outside of what you want your child to become. And then when they grow up, they're looking at the outside of the box, and they're like, how can I'm not a straight A student. And then all that anxiety and trauma, all that comes up just from not being held by two loving parents that are going to accept you for whoever you become. They're going to just help guide you to become whoever you're going to become. So I was telling people, tel's set these boxes on fire and stop making them believe. Say, okay, yes, if you want to go to a Catholic church with your friend one day, even though I'm a Christian, I'm going to just let you go so you can experience it and see what you get from it, right? And
does that work for you?
Does it work for you, right? So I'm not going to, and oftentimes we try to control the narrative, thinking that that's the best thing. Are you a Democrat because you're a Democrat, or are you a Democrat because your parents are a Democrat and told you that you have to be a Democrat?
Yeah, and I've never heard that healing is an island. And because when you think of it, in most analogies here, no man is an island, and it's like but healing, and we were talking about this earlier because it's such a solitary type of thing, and it takes time. Me deciding to put you on my timeline means that you are going to resent me because feeling forced, especially with teenagers, I tell people all the time, because I'm a bit of a liberal parent. I get it. In that, in my belief, I'm not raising a child. I am raising a human who will become an adult who needs to know how to move around the world in certain ways. But bringing it back to making sure that she has what she needs because she will have to be on her own island to heal from whatever it is that she has experienced in her life, be it, her fault or no fault of her own, mine or whomever else's. that is something that I can't force. And for people who are type A, controlling and forcing things is our jam.
Yes.
Like we like that.
Yes. Yeah, I want to protect you. I want to control how you feel.
It's not out of
I want
hurt.
you to feel. I want you to feel whole all the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes all that coddling or breathing and sucking, even when we do that to our spouses, like I just want you to be okay, right?
Yeah.
Can be damaging because if you're on an island, it's okay to have visitors on your island. So understand that sometimes they might come along and they want to hang out with you, doing this song bowl or whatever journey that you're doing or your healing journey on traveling. They might want to go along with you on that, but they might not want to do something else with you. They may not want to do the question and answers. They may not be ready for that. And so it's understanding and giving people the grace of being who they are without trying to control them.
Yeah. All right, y'all, we know we're all survivors. I'm a survivor, you're a survivor, our grandmothers are survivors, our mamas are survivor. But what does your life look like when you move from surviving to thriving?
Exactly, because here's the thing. Staying in that cycle of survival for so long makes you miss out on the best parts of life that only come after you have learned how to thrive. The challenge, if you choose to accept it and understand it, is that the only way to get to the thriving part of this whole life thing is to learn how to change.
With this program, you'll get 7 tools that you can use that will take you from awareness all the way to advancement so that you will have the skills and you'll be able to apply some of these tools and resources to start living the life you actually want.
It is absolutely time for you to not only take control of your life, but to start creating and designing a life that feels as good as it looks. Go now, hurry up. Go, go, go.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially for parents. I know I struggle with that as a mother. I'm very, very, very controlling, and I have a lot of like anxiety, and I'm trying to be more intentional on not moving or making anxiety and fear allow it to influence my decision making with my girls, because I'm just like, okay, like if I keep passing this on, this is going to be like how they operate, because my mom is so kind of fear rooted and everything kind of comes from a place of fear. So growing up, it was like, lock the door because of this. If you, like, my mom is not going to say, hey, just look both ways before you cross the street to be safe. My mom is like, look both ways before you cross the street, because if you don't, a car's going to come, it's going to hit you, you're going to die. Like, it's, you know, like, and you're like, wait, what? It's like, you know, she's very worst case scenario with it, you know, and as much work that I've done on myself, I still find myself like having intrusive thoughts, kind of over analyzing and getting to a space where I'm like, oh my God, but what if this, and what if that, but then this happens, then that, and then that's going to happen, and then the sky's going to fall, and then I don't know what I'm going to do, because the ground's going to open, I'm going to fall in, and it's just like, I spiral.
Down the rabbit hole completely, right?
So I've been like one example is my 3-year-old, I've been homeschooling her, and she asked to go to school.
Oh, sweet baby.
You feel disrespected, like what? Now we were here. Now you're there.
I've been going, right? And she was like, I want to go to school. Yeah, and I was like, I don't want you to go, because I had no intention of sending this child to school probably ever.
And the box. You're putting on the box that I'm going to be homeschooled.
Child. I want to protect my kids from this and that. And I'm in Florida, so we all know what's like Florida and education right now is a very strange place. And I was like, you know, I'm not ready for her to go to school yet. I wanted her to be a little bit more, you know, just like nurtured at home. And I was like, if I ever said so, I gave myself like some impossible option. I was like, if I ever do send her to school, it needs to be a Black-owned and operated school that's Montessori style, that is a micro school. Like, that is the kind of school I would send my daughter.
Something that's not real.
Oh no, but it is real. God was like, oh yeah? Is that how you send her to school? Here you go. Here is I found the one and only that she wanted. The only one that exists in the state of Florida, probably. And she was just like, oh my God. I was like, all right, we'll start with a little summer camp. So they had like a summer camp, and we did 4 weeks. And I was like, okay, like this is okay. And she was like, she didn't even cry. She just like went right in, and it was just like me having to move past that. So I'm saying that to say like, that controlling piece can do a lot of harm, even in a healing space, or even when your intentions are good. As a mother, I'm just trying to protect her. And I had to learn that, like, no, I want to guide you. You're asking for something. I can still give you the parameters that we're both comfortable in, but still allow you to flourish. And I can just stand back as that guide and protector while you do the thing. And I think it's trying to find the ability to do both that a lot of parents probably get a little tripped up on. I'm sure.
Right. Well, because you didn't do any harm in that scenario, right? Because you let go of yourself. You let go of what you wanted, and you let go of how you felt about the scenario, and gave your daughter the ability to make that choice, to say, she came to you and said, because it's ideal to say, I'm at home with my children and I can nurture them. But if she came to you and said, this is what I want, and you honored that, and you honored her ability to say, I want to be independent, I want friends that are in this school setting, and you did a great job in managing you. You managed you to be able to benefit her.
And I was like, okay, let's meet in the middle. If you going, it gotta be like this, you know. So it's just one of those things. Right. Yeah, it's one of those things that you learn because you want to make sure that you are setting them up to feel confident in their decision making. And I can't wait one day to be like, you know, went to school because you asked to go. Like, I want her to know that she has a voice and that she's heard, and that no matter how old she is, I trust her judgment. And I'm just here with my experience as an adult and as someone that's been on earth a little longer to give some guidance and say, that might not be the best way to go, but let's try it this way. Let's always try to meet in the middle. So it's definitely something I've had to learn on my own healing journey with my family, being that person that's like, don't you want to come with me? Don't you want to see the other side? Like, there's cookies over here. Like, what can we do? Like, stuff. Right? It's really, you know, and I grew up in one of those families because I grew up in a church family, and it was like, there's so much secrecy in those spaces, especially like in religious-based families. I've found just from talking to other people, and in many cultures, it's even seen as a betrayal to reveal all the family secrets, whether it's the uncle over here that did this, whether it's mom over here really treating you like this behind closed doors. And I feel like the silence can be really maddening and crippling for people who are trying to like break out of that and heal from it. And then it creates like this trauma. I was watching Love and Hip Hop, and there's a rapper on there named Saucy Santana. And he is a homosexual, like very out, very flamboyant, you know, gay boy. And his mom is writing a book. And his mom is in the church. And I guess when he first came out, she was very anti and very like against, and they didn't speak for years. And now she's writing this book talking about her journey of learning to love her gay son as a gay man. And as one of the episodes she spoke, they revealed that he was actually molested by his cousins when he was a little boy, by multiple cousins. It sounded like, from what I deduced, was that he was passed around, and he said he was sleeping with his cousin from he was 9 years old to 16 years old, and thinking that was normal. And he said that when he wasn't the one that said something, he told another cousin that it was happening, and that cousin ended up revealing everything. And he said that it divided his family, because there were people that were like, we don't believe you, that's a lie, that's not possible. And then there were the people that were like, oh my God, like, how could this person do this? And that's such a thing where people don't want to say something because they're afraid of all the fallout. So what are some ways people can start to tell their truth without feeling like they're shaming and dishonoring their family? Because that's a real thing, especially in the Black community, where the secrets are like, you need to keep the secret, because I know on the plantation, it's in us that, hey, you will die. And I feel like that's still in us somehow.
And I'm of a different thought process. If you want a history to recount you better, you should have been better. But I do believe and understand that's the exception, not the rule. The rule is what you were just talking about, where it's, you are supposed to stay quiet. And if you don't stay quiet, people get in trouble, people can die, you can die. Shoot, Maya Angelou didn't speak for how many years after she told that the man had molested her, and the family went and killed him, which, good job, family. But, you know.
I'm a little biased, but I agree. It's really comes down to the family. It really comes down to the family and the individual. If it's poisoning the individual to a point where they can no longer sustain the pain and holding on to that, then I would say start off with your story. Like, start off just writing your story. So if you
without saying it publicly.
Without saying it publicly.
Okay.
So I start off with letters. Like, so typically, if a patient would come in and they would want to deal with this, you write your letter to your mom. Because I've had a patient that said, I know my mom knew I know my mom ignored it.
Oh.
Right? So I've had those, right?
Yeah.
So write a letter to your mom about all the things that you feel like she's done, that it's hurt you, that you're not writing this letter to hurt her, but you're writing this letter to get it off of you. So you no longer have to hold on to the burden. That's the biggest thing. It is never the victim's job to hold on to the burden. It is your job to get rid of it, right? So even if that means writing it down in a letter, and oftentimes, and I never say, you're not giving this letter to them right now. We're just writing it so you can get it out. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And so typically at the end of the letter, I've had patients write 4 or 5 pages of letters of different things that people have ignored and things that family members have done, and they just want to get it out. They want you to know in detail the things that has been, and it takes a while to write this because it's bringing out all this stuff that you've just stuffed down, but it still always comes bubbling up. That's always trying to explain to people. Always bubbles up. So, and then after you've read it, how do you feel? And oftentimes they feel great. They feel like they've been able to say this to mom, or they've been able to say this to dad, or family members without giving it to them. And then oftentimes they mail it to them because a letter is something that you can't argue back. Nobody can gaslight you. No one can. They can't roll over your feelings, and you're not writing it to get a response because no response will ever be good. And let's just say that no response, and there's no sorry that will fix that type of pain.
And people are often feeling like if they just got that sorry, that's all they need.
Say,
if you just acknowledge it, if you just said the right thing, but you feel like that's just...
You're not looking for that. You're just looking to have your voice. So you're no longer like that lump in your throat that just sticks every time you go to a family outing and you see Uncle Ray. I'm sorry if your name is Uncle Ray. I'm just using that name as a general. But if you see him and your cousin sitting on his lap and you're triggered, right? And so the biggest thing is I'm going to have my voice so that way no one else has to experience this as well, but I also can take my voice back. I'm no longer the 5-year-old. I'm no longer the 8-year-old that you've taken advantage of or if you've done things to. I can have my voice. And even if that just means in a letter and I send it to the abuser, I send it to the parent that ignored it. If I just send that out and just say, I took my voice back, I'm not asking you to respond. I just wanted to take my voice back. I needed you to know here and now. And sometimes I find that really very healing. A lot of patients find that very healing.
And what if they do decide to speak on it publicly? How should they kind of prepare themselves, I would say, to kind of deal with any fallout or backlash that may come from family members? Because I know that is a very common thing where you do speak out in an effort to maybe help others or in an effort to make it, or even when people are speaking about public figures, right? Like we see like with Cassie talking about Diddy and saying everything. It's just like people are divided. And sometimes you see something and you're like, isn't this clearly wrong? And then it's so interesting that people still will have opposing views to like why or what or whether or not it was an okay thing or not an okay thing.
Right.
So I'm sure that happens in families too where, it's clearly wrong and on every level, but, there's just for some reason people will find different ways to cope or to deal with, and that may look like them rejecting or trying to justify the behavior. So if I do want to talk about it publicly, if I am someone that was raped by, someone that is a notable figure, a public figure, how do I like kind of prepare myself to deal with what might come with that?
I think it's really getting to know your self-worth. Like first, building that first, building all of your coping mechanisms first. I work with a lot of high-profile politicians and celebrities, and so I've dealt with this. I've had people that have come out publicly about a man that he was a serial rapist and dealing with that. And so I've dealt with women that have had to come out publicly and speak about those things. I also did the case where the woman was messing with a pastor that had HIV. He was here in Atlanta actually, and he was giving HIV to a lot of women, and he started in Texas and then came to Atlanta, and that was just his thing. And she had to come out publicly to stop him from doing that. But the first thing you do is you build up their self-worth. If you can build up your self-worth first and understand who you are internally and feeling good and comfortable about yourself and knowing what all your coping mechanisms are. So if that means you have to go to the spa when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Having some tools.
Having all the tools. So definitely having all of the tools in order to feel good and feel confident about yourself, because when that hits the media, when that hits all of that space, you can't care about what other people think.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can do now. We can start doing, raising our children. You small children, you children, raising your children not to care about what other people think when you're speaking your voice, when you're speaking how you feel. Because if you can disconnect from what other people think.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
So, I mean, you start from early age. You have to start from early age, because what we were taught was sit like a girl, cross your legs and sit like a girl, because people are going to think that you're a boy. If you're climbing the trees, they don't think you're a boy. Yeah. So if we keep telling our kids, instead of just saying, sit with your legs crossed because we don't want anybody to see your panties, right? Yeah. Instead of saying we're going to think you're a boy, or we're going to think that, you know, you're loose, or those particular type of things. That's the first thing that came to your mind.
Because that's what they always used to say.
Correct.
I was a whole virgin and it was calling me a whore.
Right. Or the way you dress is nothing. Right. Like let's just cover this part up. Like changing the way we say things, not saying things because we care about what other people think, but because how you feel. But because of how you feel. Yeah. Right? So I don't want you to climb the trees just because I don't want you to fall and break your neck. Yeah. Like maybe something like that, instead of saying people are gonna think you're a boy.
Yeah. Okay.
You're too rough. If you play with that ball, or if a little boy plays with a baby doll. No, I don't want you to think that my son's gonna be gay because he's playing with baby dolls. Instead, I'm thinking my son's gonna be a nurturing father.
Yeah.
So changing the language has been toxic, and there's a lot of dysfunction within the language and how we say things. And that's been the way things have been said generation after generation. So I was always told, like, to care about what other people think. Don't tell anybody what's going on in our household. Yeah, like, there's nothing crazy going on in our household.
It doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. Don't you say anything. Yeah. So as a therapist, the interesting thing is the first thing I give my clients is, if there's anything that you want to know about me, ask me. I am very open. I have no secrets. So the reason why I have no secrets is it helps them unleash and say, oh, I don't have to have any secrets. If I can ask her anything, and she's a therapist, which typically therapists say, it's a veil. Don't know anything about me. No, I'm human. So I let my clients know I'm human. And so what do you want to know? If it's going to help you come out your box, let's do this. Right? I don't have any secrets. I will be my own telegram. I will tell myself. There's no, my girlfriend told my business. Who cares at this point? Because I've already made it. I'll tell you too myself. Right? So I don't have to worry about my friend, I have a secret. There's no secrets. Yeah. You can know. I just
I love that.
Because you can learn from that, right? Yeah. And so it removes a lot of the shame. If we can remove shame
from
the
privacy, the cloak of private.
Why
I need to be. Right? I'm very resistant to that. It's a constant fight because I'm raised a certain way of especially being the church family. There's a lot of how it looks and what it is, and people drinking. Like I remember, I would have family members. We were really big on dinners, having church people over for dinner, and I'd have a family member drinking wine out of a mug. Yeah. Right, because you weren't allowed to drink, but they were still drinking, and I knew that. As a little girl, you see that, and you're like. That's not tea. That's not tea. And then
or you get real fast and can I have some of your tea?
But it does create this sense, and it's probably, and we were talking about this upstairs, what is the blockage? It's that's probably my biggest struggle in life. Is the constant fear and just voices of other people and feeling what are they think if I do this? Because that was my whole life. It was all about how it looks. I couldn't have a Barbie in church because all the other children needed to know that Barbies were not okay. So Danielle can't have a Barbie in church. Danielle has to sit up. Danielle can't take a nap like the other kids in church because I have to be the example. I was always the example. I was always one that had to be perfect and the model Christian little girl. Right. And it creates this kind of complex of every little thing I do, the first thing that comes to my mind is, what's this person going to say? Right. That person is going to do this. Or, it's going to look like I'm doing this now because that was the language. Yeah. And it's a very hard, I try to be so mindful with my girls because I know how hard it is to overcome it. And it's it's the hardest thing for me.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's something too because, and we talked about it earlier where we were saying that, dysfunction for many people, the dysfunction in their family, they think oh no, this is normal. This is just how it's supposed to be. For me, when I grew up in a community where financial abuse was a thing. You'd go, you'd get prayer, and they'd say, the Lord said you're supposed to give this amount. Whether or not you had that amount was irrelevant. you were supposed to find it and give 10,000, 20,000, 25,000, 50. And if not, you could be cursed or you wouldn't get the blessing of the Lord. And there were people who would literally give their last and they'd be sleeping in their car. And then that same community would be like, well, why are you sleeping in your car? Because I almost cussed. Because human. You just told me that I'm going to be cursed by God, and not God's plural, but the one big true God. I'm going to be cursed if I don't give you this money. So for me, I thought that it was normal in all churches that they exploited the people to take from them financially. That was just, I thought that was normal. Now, I didn't call it exploitation then, but now I understand it as exploitation. But I thought that that was just a thing. I thought it was normal. And so when I, first had my child, and I was still very much in religion and in church at the time, with my husband, I would let him know, we're supposed to give this amount. And he was just like, at the time, what? Like, what you,
why?
What you talking about?
Yeah.
And I thought it was normal. And so that cycle was something that I would have kept going had there not been some sort of a, I didn't like the way I felt when I heard them saying that they were supposed to give this amount, and I knew this person then was going to be sleeping in their car, was sleeping in their car, and no one came to their aid. And so I was like, okay, so how do I break the cycle? What does that look like? And so when it comes to breaking those generational cycles, how do you, and I know you said you identify first, you challenge what doesn't feel good for you, but how do you break that pattern? Because breaking patterns and things that you are so used to, it becomes ingrained in you. Whether or not it feels good, it's what you're used to.
The norm.
I did not like my church experience, but because it was what I was used to, I would party 7 days a week. And Saturday night, after we left the club, I would go, shower, get dressed, and go sit in church because that was my pattern. I didn't really have a relationship with God at the time. It was just my habit, and my pattern was to, no matter what, I can't miss church on Sunday morning. No real relationship. I have a deeper relationship now that I don't go to church than I ever did the 20 plus years I went to church. So how do we begin to break patterns that are so deeply ingrained in us?
So 1% of change happens. It takes 60 to 90 days before things can actually, like automaticity will set in. So that is
autistic.
I've never even heard
that word.
So before that will set in, it takes 60 to 90 days. So that's why you see a person that'll fail on working out. Like they might work out 3 or 4 days that week, and then they're like, oh, I just fell off the next week or whatever. Because it takes 60 to 90 days before it becomes part of your routine, right? So I tell people, if you're going to challenge something, and it would have given you an example for your church, not go on a Sunday and try to find something else that you find joy in. So if that means just walking through the park, let's walk through the park on that Sunday, and can you worship God from the park and just talk to Him in your own silence, and then tell me what that feels like. Let's come back, and then tell me what that feels like for you. So challenging those things, like just on that 1% of the block of making a change, and saying, okay, well, how did it feel? Oh, I felt like I was doing something wrong because I wasn't in the church house. Or somebody might say, I felt really good. I felt relaxed. I sat in my hammock next to the tree. It was very relaxing. I felt like I heard the birds sing. You might have that different experience. I might want to try this a little bit more often. So the challenging aspect is just by slowly, 1% of just easing things in that you want to challenge. And so that way it doesn't feel like you're just abruptly having this big change. And the other thing is, anytime it's fear-based, right? We use fear as an acronym for false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. So anytime there's any type of fear invoked in you, that's the time to start challenging it.
Okay.
That's the time to start challenging it. Because most people take fear and they run with it.
How do you know it's fear and not intuition?
Well, the fear is, it's scary. I'm going to start packing up. I'm going to start moving. I'm afraid. Intuition is, something's not right with this. It's not a fear. It's not the same feeling. It's something's not right with this. I need more information. And so when you're looking at that trigger, and you're like, okay, I got to go. I have to leave. I have to, or even like we're thinking of like COVID, that fear. If we didn't stop and think of what are the things that we can do to problem solve things, right? So now it's time to start building things. But you'll see people at grocery stores like racking the shelves
like
and
the toilet paper. What was that about, you know?
And you can like
use
use washcloths, baby wipes, washcloths. Like
you got
was like bidet sprayers. Like there was different ways of thinking through, but when you're in the fear base, you can't think. Right. So boxers they're not afraid when they go into the ring. They're thinking through, I'm going to win this. And they're not afraid. They're not afraid of their opponent. Otherwise, they would be defeated each time they go into that ring. And that's the kind of the same thing. If I'm afraid that people are going to talk about me, if I'm afraid, then I'm just going to tell you ahead of time. This is who I am. So I don't even have to worry about you talking behind my back because I'm going to tell you who I am. So anytime there's fear invoked, you want to be able to make those necessary changes. If you're saying, okay, I'm afraid my daughter's going to fall off the couch.
Put her on the floor.
Put her on the floor. Right? I'm instead of me just walking around like a lion in a cage pacing, I'm just gonna problem solve this ahead of time. So just in case. I always have a plan B.
Just plan. Just plan a little bit. And I always have a plan. I really like what you said about just even doing that one for the pattern breaking, just doing like the one small thing to defy whatever it is. I know I started doing that around 16, 17, where I just was like, this is not, I don't feel like this, I'm going to have the life I want to have. And I had just always felt, even as a child, that there was this life for me. And when I got to a certain age and a lot of things started going left, and I was like, he was the pastor, but he was biologically my cousin, but in every other way like a father to me. And he passed away at only 33 years old in a sudden car accident. And that was the moment that was just like, hold up, wait a minute. You know, like, this is not what was supposed to happen. Where was the, God that was supposed to do this, and all the prophesying and all these things that were spoken into his life, and now he's not here. And all I saw him do was sacrifice and put the whole family on his back. And now being past the age that he was when he died, I can't believe that anyone would have even allowed this young man to have so much on his shoulders. And I remember when I started questioning things, I was like, nobody around me that I know is living the life that I want to live, the life that he had even spoken for me and into me. And I started doing things, and I think I naturally have a rebellious spirit. But that's why I think some people are just naturally like, like I'm gonna do me, like, and I have other siblings that are like more rule followers. But I've always kind of been like I remember in the 8th grade, like my mom would cut my hair off and dye it red, like. And luckily, my mom was I think because she didn't always know what to do with me, she just let me do me.
Let you fly.
And I've never shared this publicly, but one of the big things for me, especially growing up in the church, and I'm talking about like me and we go to church like Tuesday for prayer meeting, Thursday for Bible study, Friday for youth church, Saturday for prayer breakfast, Sunday for church twice. Okay, I love that. So that's what I mean by church. And one of the things that I was very big on, and even though I felt the resistance from my programming, was I didn't want to get married in the church. I was like, I'm not getting married in the church. I feel more connected to God outside. I feel more connected to God in any place I feel like being connected to God. I do not have to get married in a church. And I remember even when I was saying like the venue to family members, and even when I was like touring venues, I remember feeling this thing that was like, oh, they're gonna be mad, and oh, they're gonna say that I'm a heathen and a sinner, and
and I don't mind being a heathen and a sinner now. At this point, I know all y'all got all the.
I know, but that's a big
for
thing
most people
to get married in a church. Like if you grow up in the church, like that is what's expected. And I remember, and this was not that long ago, and I remember being like, I'm not getting married in the church. I don't have to do that. God can bless my marriage regardless of where, and I got married outside in the open air, and where else is God if not in His creation outside?
And you know what I really like though, and that's like listening to what works for you, and you've done a really good job of that, of being like, I don't like it, I'm gonna do what works better for me. And you said it when you were talking about intuition and fear, and what I said in my head is, so how you can differentiate fear versus intuition is intuition gets real inquisitive. Like it gets really inquisitive. It wants you to explore and get curious and learn more. Investigate. So okay, that's the 3 I's. Intuition equals inquisitivity. Is that a word, y'all? I don't know.
We just created it.
We created it. Inquisitivity. And an investigation.
Right.
Yeah.
Who said we couldn't create words?
You know what I'm saying? That's how they were created.
Yeah, Shakespeare can do it, so can we. And the fear, it makes you not want to do anything.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't want to ask questions.
Debilitating.
Right. It only wants to reassure itself of whatever it feels. Okay. Yeah. I've heard someone give a similar. They drew a similar conclusion between fear and intuition. It's just like intuition is a knowing. Like with intuition, you just it's a settled kind of knowing, and the fear is still kind of like frantic. And I know that when you are dealing with your family, there's so much fear, and especially in Black communities, so much of our history is deeply rooted in fear and trauma.
That's the easiest way to get you to do things.
Yeah,
if I make you afraid of something, I can control you 100%.
I can get you to do whatever I want you to do.
Whatever I
will
want
not
you to
make
do.
you afraid.
Yes.
It's why now too. There was a woman, because I am adventurous, like as adventurous as they get. If we go out of the country, I want to jump off the cliffs. I want to jump out of the plane. I want to go swim with the sharks. I want to jump in the water with the wild boar. Like I'm that girl, because I saw fear weaponized in such really harmful ways. And so for me, it's like this lady on my Instagram. I had jumped off of a cliff, and she's like, "Why do you want to kill yourself so bad? Like you're doing this for likes." I'm like, first of all, before Instagram was a thing, I was still doing this.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this. This is fun.
This ain't about
enjoy it. I'm enjoying.
And she was just like, "You need to have some shame and some fear." I'm like, first of all, why gotta be shame? Because I want to jump off of stuff. Like as long as I'm not jumping on the things I'm not supposed to be, mind your business.
Right.
That's number one, and number two. I don't want my fear to be so powerful in my life that it stops me from doing the things that I find joy in.
Yeah.
For me, that was really, really big, because fear was weaponized throughout my entire existence.
Right.
If you watch this, you're going to go to hell. If you listen to this,
everything was going to hell. Everything was going to hell.
Everything.
I actually questioned that as a teenager. I got in trouble at church because we were just learning about different things, and you're going to hell for this, going to hell for that. You can go to heaven for this. And I said, well, didn't Jesus die for our sins? And they're like, yeah. I mean, this is a legitimate question. I'm raising my hand. And they're like, yeah. So they were like, yeah, he died for our sins. And it's like, so why can't we sin? Because you don't want him to die in vain if that didn't go over very well, right? But you don't want him to die in vain if we're not sinning, because he died for our sins.
All the sins out.
I don't want him to die for no reason.
Make sure
like, he sacrificed a lot. Like, he was a second. I didn't want to do that. Like, he did some stuff that we gotta sin so he has a reason to die. Like, right? And it was a legitimate question.
So innocent.
It was so innocent. And I remember that as being trauma. Like, they didn't know how to answer the question. But I was just like, you just don't question God. And those are things like, no, he died so you wouldn't sin. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, then why do you need to die if we all have to be like him? Like, right? So it's those kind of things. Yeah, I was definitely that kid.
I know they were upset with you. Especially they get real mad when they can't answer the question.
They couldn't answer the question. I had a lot of questions, and they just couldn't answer those questions. And that's when I realized I'm different. I was built different, and that's one of the reasons why me being a licensed counselor is so important, because I enjoy helping people come out of their box, set their box on fire, stand on top of their box. If they're not ready to leave the box, we can just stand on top of the box. It's okay. There's no judgment. It's just a very open, free space to just be and explore.
Yeah. And find ways. There's so much freedom. Or setting that bitch on fire.
Because if you think about kids and you tell them no, if you tell a kid, a baby, a toddler, no, they just look at you like, okay, I'll just find another way to do it.
Exactly.
And so that's when I helped create NO as an acronym for next opportunity.
That's what I say.
Yes.
I've
next opportunity.
Say that.
Yeah.
No means next opportunity.
That's it. Yeah. So I'm not afraid of no.
Yeah.
Because it just means next opportunity. And that's babies, children, toddlers, that's what they do. They're just like, I'll go ask mom then. Dad said no.
Yeah. Well, wait till you turn your back and it's like,
it's a next opportunity. I got the cookie, right?
And that's why you have to teach them self-discipline. So that, and I give them, and I try, I'm working on it, but I've been trying to be more intentional of not saying no, but saying not right now. Or giving them another option. Like, my daughter would be like, oh, can I have a popsicle? possible, but you can have this. Because that no creates that resistance I've noticed in her. She's 3.
Yeah.
And because she's so like, no, like, what? Don't tell. She'll even say, don't tell me no. I'm not done yet. Like, so I would be like, she'll be like, I'm like, okay, it's time to turn off the TV. And she's like, no. I'm like, you can watch TV tomorrow if you turn off TV now. So I need to give her what the possibilities will be. If you can, and I feel like I get some criticism for not being so offended by no's, but I think sometimes we take how, especially children are so personally, and like they're defying us, and they're disobedient, and they're not listening.
They're great lawyers.
Yeah.
They're great lawyers at an early age. You're creating a great lawyer. You're creating a great person.
And leaders.
Yeah, problem solver.
Listen, I love it. I've been, because when, again, how you're raised, the dysfunction in my household, everybody yelled. There was always hitting. There was always violence. I know for me, I grew up in a community that was very violent towards me, physically violent. Like I remember being slapped. I remember being jumped on. Like just really violent. Like my mom, I love her, you. You know, you leader of my village now. And also back then, she didn't have the tools either.
Right.
Like choking me up to the roof, and I said, "She's a little woman."
Yeah.
I mean, I'm about to touch the roof because she's so angry because I was so defiant. I mean, I was real defiant. And what I realized is I took a lot of that dysfunction, the yelling, the screaming, the, you know, getting in your face, do what I said, do da 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 da, like trying to control you because I felt so powerless. I did that a lot when my daughter was younger. And as I started to really, really take the time to heal and work on and work through my own shit, it was like, hey, I don't have to talk like this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I can do something a different way. I don't have to hit you.
No.
And I'm not a gentle parent. Sorry, y'all. I'm not a gentle parent. And I do believe if I get you right good in the beginning, I have a lot fewer issues later on. Okay? I do believe and agree with that. However, I also believe that I can speak to you and get you to understand what I'm saying much easier if I'm not yelling at you. Because most people, once you start to yell at them, they go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And I don't need you to always see me as someone that you have to combat or be so afraid of that you freeze up and you can't think when you're around me or move or operate because you're so terrified that I'm gonna knock you the hell out or yell at you to the point to where you're in tears. Now I just look at my daughter and she's like, okay. I'm gonna gotcha, sis.
Right, and you don't want to create that algorithm as a parent because then your children don't feel safe with you. And that allows predators to also come in and use that against you. I'm going to tell your mom if you're not listening to me, if you're not doing, even if they're doing something traumatic to them. They'll allow them to do it because out of fear of disappointing you, or out of fear of you being upset because you're the only person that's able to spank me or those particular type of things. So teachers will use that against them. Predators will use that against them and say, well, I'm going to tell your mom. And you want them to be able to say, okay, call her and tell her.
You're right.
Call her and tell her. Let's call her.
Bring her on down
here. Use your phone or my phone.
Which way you
bring her down here because I know what you're saying and what you're trying to do to me is wrong. And as a result, you're trying to use my mom against me, and we don't want that. Or my dad or my grandmother. We want to be able to feel safe coming to those people before and being able to not use them as another trauma response.
And I think this gives a lot of just like there is hope for us and our families. You know, like even if they're not ready to come on the journey with you today or tomorrow or in 10 years, you can just still be that light and that example and just continue to stay the course as opposed to getting discouraged or feeling like it's all for naught. Like, be okay with just being the leader in that sense. And maybe you're the one person and maybe you move them 2 degrees to the right. And if that is a part of your legacy that you get to leave in your family that, oh, you know, like we had that one auntie that didn't ever yell at us. And maybe that's the thing that they can carry with them because they know what it looks like to live and to be different. If you're just the only one, be that only one in your family and just continue to be the person that helps show them that there's a different way, there's a better way, there's an alternative way that doesn't have to be so toxic and so dysfunctional.
Right. It's kind of like the whole thing about the black sheep, right? Mm-hmm. I always tell people, like, because people go, oh, you're the black sheep of your family. And I'm like, no, I'm actually not. I don't associate with sheep. I'm more of a rhino. The thick skin. Yeah. It's like they're worth a lot. They're big. They're not gonna, because sheep, whether you're a black sheep or whether you're a white sheep with the rest of the herd, you're gonna get eaten.
Oh, that's
so. I'm not a black sheep because the wolf doesn't care whether you're a white sheep or a black sheep. The wolf, you're now prey. You're not an apex predator. Mm-hmm. You are a prey, and I am not a prey. Like the reason why I stand out is because I'm not, and so I'm not a black sheep. So we're getting rid of that whole idea of I'm a black sheep of the family. No, I'm more of a rhino.
Yeah,
definitely more of a rhino.
I'm more of a lion. I'm more of a black panther. I like that.
Right. But the lion has a den of lionesses, right? Yeah. And the lionesses are really what controls his den. Mm-hmm. He sits back and kind of just watches them. They hunt. They do the hunting. If there's another lion that comes into the pride, they attack them. So it's kind of the lionesses.
Yes, the women.
Are the ones that really control and run the pride, and he's there to ensure that they do what they say they're built to do, really. Yeah. So, and it's a beautiful way to watch them kind of move.
I love that. So we not black sheeps. Okay? We black panthers. Okay? in all the ways.
Find your spirit animal, but it's just not a sheep, not a black sheep.
No, I love this. I think that this is useful, and it's just important for us to keep having these conversations and to just know that there is another way. Yeah. There is another dynamic for you and your family to have that you can determine. If you don't want to be around Uncle Ray this Thanksgiving, don't go to Thanksgiving dinner. Create a Friendsgiving. Find other ways to curate and create your own families. If you're in a family that you just know that there is just no hope in this century, find your own family. Create your own family. Yeah. Find your tribe. Find families that will adopt you in. It doesn't always have to be you're so reliant on this toxic environment that you feel like you must go there just to get any sense of familiarity and any sense of love. If all that we've said is just not something that's applicable because of just how dangerous it could even be to be around your family, then it's okay to go out and create and find your own family.
That is. And a healthy sense of self. Understanding just because they gave birth to me does not mean that they can abuse me. So funny how people will not allow their friends to abuse them. And I'm cutting you off, but the mom has done more damage. That's why you keep attracting people, or the dad has done more damage. So you can set boundaries, and people, the word is bouncing around everywhere, thanks to TikTok. But you don't have to walk around and say, my mom is a narcissist, but you allow the narcissist still in your life. So if you want to stop being the victim, you set the boundary and say, I'm no longer going to allow this person to call me. You can easily get off the phone. If you're saying they're calling you to dump, those energy vampires are calling you to dump, then you just say, oh, I'm about to burn cookies. Let me call you right back. You just use my line. That's the line I use. But it's a really great line to just get off the phone, and you don't have to listen all the way through. And setting those boundaries and saying, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And even your codependent family members will call you. They're calling you for the light bill. They need the light bills every month on the same time. Then wait a couple days to call them back. Mm-hmm. Just wait a couple days to call them back. Let them figure it out before. And then when you call them back, I already figured it out. It's like, that's great.
I'm so happy to hear that.
You don't always have to be the fixer.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're enabling.
Yeah.
And you're not letting them get the experience and the lessons that they're supposed to get to be this better version that you want them to be, but you're actually standing in their way. Right. You're standing in between the rock and the hard place. They need to be in between the rock and the hard place. If your lights are getting cut off, I'll come over and bring you some candles.
Yeah, gotcha.
I'm not paying this bill this week. Yeah. This month.
Figure it out.
Let's go to the Dollar Tree and get you some candles, girl. Right? That's it. You're going to learn this lesson today. And that's how it was before. You don't have to have lights. So you can just get some candles. It's the summertime. You'll be fine.
Oh, some flashlights. Okay.
Right. I got a couple flashlights here.
Yes. This is so good. So where can folks stay connected with you? How can they want to, partner with you to help them along their way or along their journey? Where can they find you and stay connected?
Yeah, I have a website. It is angeleyescounseling.com. You can find me there. Send an email through the website, and find me there. And I'll be happy to help out for sure.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Dani, where's this?
You can stay connected with me at the Dani Bourdeau. Bourdeau is Bourdeau. You can stay connected with us on TriggeredAFpodcast.com. You can go to @TriggeredAFPC.com on Instagram, and you can go to TriggeredAFEvents.com to see when we're coming to a city near you. Where can we stay connected with you?
You can stay connected with me all over, everywhere at Alechia Reese. That's ALECHIA. Y'all know my parents got excited. Last name Reese, REESE. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. If this episode helped you, make sure you share it, especially with some of them dysfunctional family members who need a deliverante. Go ahead and press the share button. Just drop it into text them real quick, and then put it back on the block list if you must. But we want to make sure that we get this message out wide and far. So make sure you share. And until next time, bye.